So I'm going to talk about EDR killers. For the old-timers in the room, this is what we used to call AV killers, because that's what they do, kill antivirus processes and services. Nowadays, the trendy name for AV is EDR. And because I'm a flexible and trendy person, I'm going to use the term EDR throughout this presentation. And I'm going to look into the most common EDR killers that we have seen nowadays in ransomware attacks. And I'm going to show you what interesting data we found when we have looked at the overlap between the usage of EDR killers by different ransomware groups. Also, at the end, there is going to be some bonus. How do you kill an EDR product without killing a single process or service belonging to it? This is a joint work by my colleague Steve Gaudreau, who unfortunately cannot be here, so I'm representing both of us. This whole thing started about 5 years ago. If you remember, VB localhost back then, we had a presentation with my colleague Vikas about the days and hours that precede the ransomware attacks, because the execution of the ransomware is the conclusion of a longer process. There's a preparation phase, and for this presentation, we looked at the toolset and the procedures that ransomware actors are using while building up the attack. And ever since, I've been looking at these skill chains. And recently, more and more important part of the skill chains have become these EDR killers. Why is that? Despite the popular belief, security products are quite effective at stopping ransomware. And the ransomware actors are aware of this fact too, so they do anything in their power to avoid encounter with the EDR software. What they are doing, they have two main approaches. One of them is try to find unprotected devices on the network, on the system that they are infected, and execute remote encryption of the files on the shared drives from there. The other procedure that they are doing is using the EDR killers, stop and kill the processes and services that belong to the security protection. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to do what I don't regularly do, or I don't do at all, really, which is tracking the ransomware groups and see the connection between them and the transitions between them. To do that, I'm going to use some external references and data as a help at the beginning of the thought process to make sense of that. There were a couple of publications in that subject. First one by ESET researchers about the use of the EDRKillShifter, EDR killer. It's a proprietary tool of the Ransom Hub ransomware group. It was closely controlled by the operators of Ransom Hub. The affiliates could request a new copy or a new sample of this killer through a build server, and they received their unique copy. What ESET researchers found that these EDRKillShifter samples migrated through different ransomware operations over the time. For example, one of these binaries was first used in a Medusa attack, and then in Ransom Hub, and then in Bianlian. And then on, pivoting on further that, a different sample of EDRKillShifter was used in a Play ransomware attack. Also, there was network infrastructure overlap between Bianlian and Play. So this is one kind of connection between the ransomware groups. So the other one, it is a research by Corsin Carmichael, who has been collecting data leak logs for years. On the data leak sites, as a teaser, the ransomware affiliates are publishing directory listings of the leaked documents and files. Guess what they are doing? They take a local copy of the leaked files and run the dir command on that. But the dir command starts with a unique volume number listing. So what happened is that these affiliates were running and working for different ransomware operations, and these could be grouped together by these volume ID numbers. And what Cosim found is that there were interesting overlaps. SafePay was a very active player there, and there were overlaps with the Ink and Lynx ransomware operation and SafePay. Also, SafePay overlapped with Blacksuit and Logbit as well. So these overlaps were established by the same affiliate working in all these operations. Using this and other publicly available information, I threw up this initial map just to guide the thought. Blacksuit was disbanded, so the affiliates and operators moved to Chaos and Ink. Ransom Hub suffered a hostile takeover by a competitor, so the affiliates spread out to Logbit, Kili, and Dragon Force. Also, there is this mysterious player, SafePlay, which doesn't have much public presence, this ransomware group, and they have a very closed affiliates model. They don't work with just anybody, only trusted partners. But reportedly, they have connections with the Ink ransomware group, also some weak links with Blacksuit, Akira, Prey, and Kili. So this is where I started. Let's move back to last year. Last year, together with Steve, we were talking about a Packer as a Service offering, the impersonators, as we call them. And in the conclusion of that presentation, we mentioned that there are similar Packer as a Service offerings on the market and highlighted one of them. The work didn't stop. We went on analyzing that new Packer as a Service model. And fortunately for us, shortly after that, Unit 42 researchers identified this Packer as a Service as HardCrypt. It is being distributed, it is being promoted through underground forums and Telegram channels. And this Packer as a Service costs about $20 per sample packed with this Packer. Overall, we found over 2,000 of these files packed with this service. The way it works, it takes a legitimate binary from a legitimate software developer, injects the loader code, and inserts a resource which contains the encrypted payload. So we found about 230 different software vendors that they abused this way. I mean, the binaries were abused this way. And looking at the final payloads that they were distributing using HardCrypt-packed binaries, the most common were Remcos, Radamantis, LumaStealer, Asyncret, credential stealers, and remote access trojans, typically initial access malware. Also, one of the interesting part was this EDRKiller software, and we are going to look into this EDRKiller software, which doesn't have a name. I didn't find any references to it. Some parts of its operation have been covered. For example, this Salarian blog, where they mentioned that for defense evasion, a malicious driver is dropped with random 5-letter name and using a signature, digital signature, compromised signature by Changsha Hengxiang Information Technology Limited. So this EDRKiller doesn't have a name. It's great because I always envied those people who come up with the flashy names for the malware families. I never dared to do it myself, but guess what? This is the last presentation of the day before the gala dinner. I can do whatever I want. So for the purpose and extent of this presentation, I'm going to call this EDRKiller Scorched Heart. Please don't quote me on that. What we know, it has a heavily protected code looks for the driver with a file with a random name. So they are linked together by this name. And the driver is signed with a compromised signature. The killer itself used the driver to kill processes and services and the files in the install directory of the antivirus solution. The first attempt that we have seen was targeted our products, Sophos and Hitman Pro. Other variants had a wider range of target selection, like one sample was targeting at the same time it said Symantec, Sophos, Webroot, and Kaspersky Lab products. All in all, we have found about, in the different samples, altogether from this family, about 15 security products that were targeted by Scorched Heart. If your company is not on this list, it doesn't matter, the company, for these ransomware groups. In the sense that they were targeting organizations that were not protected by that product. Anyway, initially it was signed by this compromised signature. Later on, they switched to a new one because that previous one was revoked. If you look at this, it is an expired signature from 2011. Still, it is used by the EDR killer. One reason for that is this blog explaining how to bypass EDR products by backdating the system time for the load process of the driver. Operating system will not know that it is outside of validation period. Also, there was a presentation yesterday, Zhibinopal mentioned that it is very beneficial to have drivers signed by signature valid before July 2015, because for these old drivers, the obligatory content signing by Microsoft is not enforced. Anyway, the driver itself was detailed in the Elastic blog, and they called it Abyss Worker. Some other publications call it Poor Try or Burnt Cigar. By the way, Burnt Cigar was the name that inspired me to use the Scorched Heart name for this ADR killer. In a typical scenario, what we have seen was that we have seen the deployment of this Scorched Heart EDR killer, and shortly after that, it was followed by the execution of the ransomware itself, in this case, Medusa. This is a particularly interesting case because we can see that the EDR killer was running from this gwrapper remote directory, which is a component of Simple Help. A couple of weeks before this incident, there was a blog about a zero-day remote code execution vulnerability within Simple Help. So the ransomware group was really quick to adapt to this and use this. Overall, we have seen the Scorched Heart used in several different ransomware operations: Black Suit, Ransom Hub, Medusa, Killing Dragon Force, Kritok Link, Lynx, and Cicada. And I was looking for any pattern that could help me. Now, keep in mind that I have a very limited data set here. It is only coming from our customers, and unfortunately, we have a pretty good EDR solution, and we have a pretty good virus lab to support that with detections. So we usually stop the infection process at a very early stage, around the usage of the EDR killer. So we see we saw Scorched Heart deployed in much more cases, but it didn't conclude to the actual ransomware infection. Lucky for our customers, and not so lucky for me because I don't have that data. But anyway, with this limited data set, I have seen over the time which ransomware groups used Scorched Heart. And when you look at this data and try to interpret it, there are multiple solutions, probably explanations why multiple groups are using it. First of all, it can be a publicly available product. Multiple groups find it and use it. Or it could be a ransomware affiliate running away with a tool from one group to another, or it could be ransomware operator and or an entire operation transitioning from one ransomware to the other. So an additional help was to see the hashes of different variants of Scorched Heart, if there is any overlap in the usage of different ransomware operations. And there was only a single overlap, and that was between Lynx and Ink. These are commonly reported as very closely related groups, so that's not a surprise. But in all other cases, there was no overlap, so it was not an affiliate running away with a copy of the EDR killer. And this EDR killer is using the hard crypt packer as a service. Also, whoever is building these different samples has to have access to the source code of the EDR killer, because the list of the targeted security products differs with different variants. So it doesn't look like an affiliate running away. It's more like an operator or an operation transitioning between these ransomware groups. And if you look at this way, you can see an almost clear transition path running from one ransomware family through the next, through the next, through the next. There are a couple of disturbing points which I cannot explain. The overlap between Critox and Dragonforce. Also, there is this intermezzo in Ink ransomware usage where Cicada was used. And there is Killin, which, as turns out later throughout this presentation, they are all over the place in inexplicable time frames. So that's an outlier. I cannot explain that. The thing is, if you looked at the dates of these attacks that I was mapping, you could see that the use of Scorched Heart spanned from April till the end of August. And if you paid attention to it, you should feel very frustrated right now, because this is a last-minute VB presentation, and this is not a last-month VB presentation. So what's happening right now? And what's happening right now is there is a new kid on the block. There is a new packer as a service that is used in ransomware attacks, and that's what we call Shanya. And there is a new EDR killer that is being packed with that. And the groups migrated to using these. Okay. Sorry, I had a technical difficulty. I lost control over my presentation. So why do we call it Shanya? It's because in the earlier samples it had rich debugging information. One of them was the name of the executable, which was Shanya Crypta, which is really a telltale sign. And in some cases, DLL versions were built. And these DLL versions had this structure where the last section was a random DLL name. The first section was a morphed version of Shanya, and the middle one is the purpose of the tool, which is kindly bypass EDR detections. It was reported by Cybertech Solutions, and it was called as Armillaria Loader. And they reported that multiple malware families were being distributed using Armillaria Loader packed carriers. They named Bumblebee, Chuchuka, LumaStealer, WHT Downloader. Later on, we have seen in infection campaign the StealC Stealer, another new ADR killer, and just recently Castorad. Additionally, we have found advertisement on the XSS underground forum announcing this VX script by a developer called Shanya. The capabilities included non-standard loading in memory, Unix stub, MC bypass, runtime protection, and also ability to use these samples in a side loading scenario, which really matched what we have seen in the samples that we found in the wild. Also, it is not really likely that two different offerings would have the same Shanya name associated with them. Anyway, the contact address was a Telegram handle, Shanya0xFF. So we strongly believe that this is behind it. So let's talk about this EDR killer that is being used in ransomware attacks protected by Shanya. Also haven't seen any public references to it. So guess what happens? This is the last presentation of the day before the gala dinner. I can use any name that I want, so I chose Shanyageddon for the extent and purposes of this presentation. Again, don't quote me on this. What we have seen, it was used in DLL side loading scenarios. The clean loader was consent.exe, Microsoft program. The malicious DLL was MSIMG32 DLL, and it dropped two kernel drivers. One of them is a vulnerable driver by tech power-up, and the other one was the malicious driver, malicious kernel driver. And Shanyageddon dropped the clean driver and the malicious driver afterwards. And then it used the malicious driver, it directed the malicious driver, and the malicious driver used the vulnerable clean driver to get write access to kernel structures it should not have access to. Anyway, it was going through the loaded driver list and the processes list and try to stop them. If there was a problem, the user was kindly asked to contact the coder and report the problem to it. This is something I rarely see in malicious samples, but it was there. Anyway, there was a long list of drivers targeted and security processes targeted. And the ransomware incidents that we have seen, this Shanyageddon killer, were more limited than in the case of Scorch-Sharp. Medusa, Akira, Killin, and Kritox ransomware were using it. The GuidePoint security blog mentioned the two drivers being used, disabling the protection in ransomware incidents, but didn't mention the loader itself, the Shanyageddon EDR killer itself that dropped the drivers. Anyway, how does the usage overlap look like? What we have seen, it was most commonly used in Akira. As was reported by that grid blog, that it was extensively used by Akira using a remote code execution exploit. And there was some overlaps with Kritox. Don't ask me to explain that. There is Killin again in the middle of everything. And it originated from the Medusa group, the first use of this EDR killer. Looking at the samples, there is no overlap between the operations. Once again, it is an indication that the more likely explanation is that ransomware operator or operation was transitioning from one family to another. And now, the bonus track that I promised you. So we have seen these sophisticated EDR killers, but you don't need an EDR killer to disable security protection. And this we have seen in one of the ransom hub attacks that we observed. It all looked usual and normal. We had a ransom hub execution at the end of the process, and before that we could see dropping some of the files that are very common in the preparation stage, like Mimikatz. There was another file which is not that common, which is this management software of a popular security suite. And we didn't understand what it's doing there at that stage, right before the ransomware attack. Later on, in the upcoming weeks, we have seen similar cases where the usual suspects were used in the preparation stage: advanced IP scanner, Megasync, Mimikatz, Screen Connect, and the likes. And in all cases, this management software was dropped. And we didn't understand it, so we contacted the developer of this suite, and they didn't understand it either. And some time later, our colleagues in the MDR team finally could fetch detailed system logs from an attack system. And from that log, they could reconstruct the process. And this is what the reconstructed process looked like. The attacker took this management software and split the active volume into two, creating a new volume at the end of the volume. And then it could be configured to move directories from the old volume to the new one. So they chose our product directories, which contained components of our protection and also the virus database. After that, the system is rebooted. The kernel driver of this management solution loads early in the process before our protection drivers could be activated, creates a new partition, moves the files, and at the end of the reboot process, our protection is not running because all the components are moved to the new volume, and all the shortcuts and registry settings are still pointing to the original location of the old volume. So nothing was stopped, nothing was killed. The protection was disabled at the end. Okay, we have seen this method being used by a couple of ransomware groups: Ransom CP, Link Inc., Akira, Play, Killing. And here is the usage overlap over the time between these groups. Now keep in mind that it is just a tool. It is not a tool, specifically not a tool that you can purchase or get. It is a knowledge that you either have and use or not have. And I tried reasonably hard to find any external references on the internet of this method of disabling EDR product. I didn't find it. Our colleagues looked into the underground forums that they are monitoring, and there was no reference to it. So it is a knowledge that someone has, and it's used in multiple ransomware operations. And it's not the type of knowledge that you would share with just anyone. So if we are seeing overlaps in the usage, that suggests very strong either personal overlap between these groups or very strong connection, very strong friendly connection with them. And it just underlines what was reported by external other publications, the connection between SafePay, Play, Akira, and Inc. ransomware groups. And then again, Killing is just in the middle of the activities without any good explanation. So the conclusion of this presentation is there is a definite tooling and knowledge overlap between the ransomware operations. It could be affiliates are multitasking or migrating to new groups, or operators are doing that, or entire operations that are doing that. There are a bit of disturbing pieces. For example, Play, SafePay, and Bialy are reported to have a very closed affiliate models, so they don't really share things with others. And I can't explain and understand killing, what's happening there. In other words, we don't really understand what's going on. It is I think it's a useful piece of information for you to keep in mind. If you have something to support any of these connections, please let me know. Otherwise, use these connections to look into your data and try to see if you see anything similar. It was a good and useful piece of information for me to have, and I'm going to walk on this path to try to find and map more overlaps. Now, for closing the end of this presentation, as speakers, we were reminded to stick strictly to the 30-minute limits. But guess what? This is the last presentation of the day before the gala dinner. I can do whatever I want. So, for the first time in recorded history, I will finish in time. Thank you very much.